The risks of thermonuclear war. I mean, this is literally lunacy, the definition of lunacy. What the Biden administration's seeking to do. I mean, I know we have a policy of supporting Ukraine, et cetera, but is Ukraine worth America? I mean, are we saying that Ukraine is an existential extension of America? That if we lose Ukraine, we lose America? Therefore, we're willing to bet it all on this, vain hope that Ukraine can somehow stabilize this situation, right this ship, and move on to victory over Russia, understanding that Ukrainian victory over Russia means the end of the world. So either way we go, we appear to be saying that we're willing to put the lives of all Americans at risk for Ukraine, because that's the logical, that's the way this logically plays out. In the short term, I think Russia will do as Russia's always done. Show an ability to absorb these provocations, to manage the escalation, because Russia is focused on strategic objectives, like the big one in BRICS in Kazan next month, the BRICS summit, that will redefine the world in a major way, away from American hegemony to multilateralism, moving BRICS from theory to reality. Following through on the promise made by Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping in February of 2021 when they met prior to the Beijing Olympics in Beijing, and said that the rules-based international order, that is the foundation of America's foreign policy and national security policy, is a threat to international security, and that the Russians and the Chinese will now spearhead an effort to supplant it with what they call the law-based international order, something that reflects the values enshrined in the United Nations Charter as opposed to the unilateral dictate of America. Putin, I don't think, is going to allow anything to happen that will disrupt BRICS. And that includes making sure that Russia doesn't overreact to any provocation by the Ukrainians at the behest of their NATO masters. Now, if Ukraine is dumb enough to hit something of strategic value or inflict harm on Russian national level command and control, I think the game dramatically changes, and therein lies the problem. You see, the United States isn't in control of this. We think we are. We think we're providing the weapons. I'm pretty sure that this green light that we're giving them comes with heavy caveats on where they can and can't strike. But we've just seen the United States, repeatedly push through its own red lines. Remember, Joe Biden once said that doing this could lead to World War III. Well, you're doing it, Joe. You're doing it. So, yeah, I agree with them. This could lead to World War III. This is one of the most dangerous things that has happened in modern history. This is a total disregard on the part of the United States for the lives of humanity. To do what? Again, I just have to ask, to do what? Score propaganda points? Give a failing Ukrainian leader one last go around at legitimacy? What are they trying to accomplish from this? Because it's not going to defeat Russia. Well, on the one hand, it will give the United States the ability to say that we did everything the Ukrainians asked us to do as Ukraine fails. It's a short-term boost for Volodymyr Zelensky, who will say, look, I'm the guy who's standing up to Russia. They may get some propaganda, opportunities if the ATACMS hits an airfield and takes out some Russian aircraft, hits a command and control center, takes out a Russian general or two. That's it. Russia's a nation that knows war, and Russia has already lost generals. So killing two more isn't going to change a thing. Russia's lost aircraft. Blowing up a half a dozen more isn't going to change a thing. So this is purely a PR stunt that unfortunately is going to result in a lot more dead Ukrainians. Look at the Kursk PR stunt. Yesterday the Russians began a counteroffensive that's just slaughtering, and I mean an emphasis on slaughtering, the Ukrainian soldiers, and it's going to continue. The Ukrainians don't have the resources to halt the Russian advance in the Donbass. Sooner or later, the Ukrainians are going to break there, and we'll have to suffer the embarrassment of retreating behind the Dnieper River. So this is the PR stunt by Ukraine to, I guess, try and convince more European nations to reach deeper into their coffers to pull out more money and more military equipment to rebuild the Ukrainian military yet again, so that whatever troops they're able to muster can sally forth and be slaughtered, because that's all that's going to happen. Ukraine is not going to win this war. Ukraine is not going to turn things around. And we acknowledge this. There's not a single American leader that's saying, oh, this is going to give Ukraine the ability to flip the script. No, every American leader says there is no magic weapon. There is nothing that's going to, in and of itself, change things. But I guess there's still this forlorn hope that by dragging this war out, that somehow that'll weaken Vladimir Putin's resolve and the will of the Russian nation to back Vladimir Putin. Somehow the Russians will voluntarily hit the quit button. But that's not the Russia that I encountered when I visited last year and earlier this year. There's no other alternative. I mean, it's not like Russia's going to say, oh, well, I guess you get part of Kursk. It doesn't work that way. Russia will reclaim all of its territory, and it'll do so emphasizing violence. All Kursk did is give the Russians the opportunity to open up yet another front in this war of attrition. And business has been very good. We're talking upwards of 12,000 Ukrainians have been eliminated from the field of battle there. We're talking about maybe they went in with 20 or 30,000 reserves. They're coming close to losing 50% of their strategic reserves. And the battle is only now just getting, joined in by the Russians, by serious Russian forces. The Russians may have assembled up to 60,000 troops to take on the Ukrainians. And when they destroy the Ukrainians, and they will destroy the Ukrainians, these troops will have some sort of operational momentum that will enable them to push further into Ukraine, causing the Ukrainians to lose even more territory. Ukraine is heroically resisting the Russians. They're inflicting horrific harm on the Russians, destroying equipment, killing and wounding men. And they're causing economic damage to Russia. Russia, according to the Western narrative, is superficially covering for this by pumping up their defense industry. But according to the Western narrative, this is creating irreparable harm on Russia's civilian industry, that eventually the Russian economy will collapse because of this war. And then with it, Vladimir Putin's political support will collapse. And hopefully the West will end up with either a Putin that's gone into exile or a very weakened Putin who will be compliant to Western demands. That's the dream of the West and of Ukraine. But that's not the reality. The reality is far different. Where this is going, it's not going to end well for either Ukraine or the West. Remember, we got to view this war in a broader perspective than simply focusing on the battlefield. Remember that this started off as primarily an economic war before. We talked about sanctioning Russia. The whole goal was that we were going to sanction Russia into submission. That didn't work. In fact, it backfired. And now we have Europe in an absolute economic tailspin. We have Germany collapsing. The political consequences of these economic problems is devastating. Britain's on its 5th prime minister in 5 years. Germany's Olaf Scholz looks like he's heading down the toilet bowl of political life. His coalition did not fare well in the regional elections in Germany, in Thuringia and Saxony earlier this month. France is in a political crisis with Macron reaching down to the 4th or 5th party to find a leader because he's not willing to accept the will of the French people and empower the representative of the party that won the most votes. it's just Europe is in a free fall. The economy is trashed because of high energy prices and bad decisions, including the diversion of over 150 billion euro into this conflict in Ukraine. Meanwhile, around the world, nations not only have failed to side up with the West and sanction Russia, they are siding on Russia's side. And we see this in the upcoming BRICS summit. Again, this is going to be a game-changing event that's going to redefine the world. And, and the reason why it's happening is because of the conflict in Ukraine and how the West has, overplayed its hand, trying to bully people through economic sanctions, through indirect and direct pressure, threats, to yield to the policy imperatives of the United States, and the world is saying no. One of the key things that's happening right now is de-dollarization. I don't think the United States has woken up to the fact that 158 nations have committed to the BRICS conceptual plan to de-dollarize. This is huge. This will have a devastating impact on the economy. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that's outside of the framework of, the battlefield that people aren't taking into account. We tend to get very focused on the battlefield, how many dead Ukrainians, how many destroyed tanks, what's going on, how are the arrows moving. But as you pull away, the battlefield becomes less and less important. I mean, the most important thing about this battlefield is the war of attrition, is the fact that the Ukrainians are grinding up Ukrainian manpower, mercenary manpower, Ukrainian and NATO provided equipment at a rate far greater than they're able to replace. So Ukraine just gets weaker every single day. Russia, on the other hand, is bringing in troops that far exceed daily casualty rates. They're equipping them with modern equipment. They're able to repair equipment. So Russia's getting stronger every day. Ukraine's getting weaker every day. And eventually the correlation of forces will be such that Russia will be able to readily, roll over the Ukrainian military. So, that's where things stand.
That's called World War III. Okay?